What do you do when you have a sweatshirt that is old and balling up, but you really like it, but you never wear it because you don't wear hoodie sweatshirts anymore, but you don't want to get rid of it because it's pretty? What do you do? Why, you turn it into something else, of course. Supplies needed: the sweatshirt, a section of duck fabric you found at the thrift store, and a bedsheet, also from the thrift store. Trace around the edge of the design, being sure to add a seam allowance. So you're not confused with the two lines. This is my cutting line. This was my original cutting line because I was measuring from the letters, but then I got over here and I realized that if this were my cutting line, the star would get swallowed up in the seam allowance, and I do not want that to happen. So this is my new cutting line, so it will include that star. And now to cut on the correct cutting line. This bedsheet is going to play a very important role. I am working with stretchy fabric and I'm going to be joining it to non-stretchy fabric for the body of the bag. I need this to become non-stretchy fabric, so I am going to back it with the bedsheet fabric. But I have to be very careful how I do that because if I cut this out anywhere but on the grain line, there's going to be some give, which completely defeats the purpose of backing it. The bedsheet fabric will make the edge of the circle stable and not stretchable. As for the inside of the circle, however, some magic is necessary.
Witchcraft.
The stitch witchery circle would nestle nicely in between the other two circles. Cover with a pressing cloth and stamp. Don't slide. And the same on the other side. Beautiful. And now for the rest of the pieces. These are all the pieces needed for the bag and the bag lining. I did end up having to shrink some pieces just a smidge to make them all fit. This side piece here is 3 inches taller than its lining counterpart because I would be folding the top edge of the bag over the lining edge 3 inches. I ended up having to shorten it, but only by about 1/2 inch, so it wasn't too bad. And for the straps, I ended up cutting them almost 4 inches wide. I had to trim it down to 3 3/4 inches instead of 4. And that's the difficulty, but also the beauty of sewing, especially with thrifted supplies. You've got to figure out what you can do as you go. And this lovely piece of fabric is all I have left over. Now it's time to, sort of, center the circle onto one of the larger pieces. Sort of, because of that additional fold over of 2.5 inches at the top edge. So it might seem like it's not centered, but that's just because we haven't yet sewn all of our seams together. I apologize. Now, I was cutting a hole so that I could fill it with the sweatshirt circle. I instead could have simply set it on top of the fabric and top stitched around the circle as an applique. That would have been easier, but I prefer the look of cutting an empty space and filling it.
Can you hear the empty spaces?
I'm drawing on the outside of the circle. Why am I drawing on the outside of the circle? Ignore that. The inside. I want to draw a line on the inside of the circle because that is going to give me my seam allowance. What can I say? I'm directionally challenged. Pin the circle to the inverted circle along the edges. And please do ignore the fact that I used a 5/8 inch seam allowance here. I do not know what possessed me to do so. I measured for a 3/8 inch seam allowance, but it was a simple correction, just a little annoying. Give it a good press and top stitch around that beautiful logo circle. Now I had 2 pieces matching in size, but slightly different in looks. Time to assemble the bag. Here are all of our side pieces. This one gets sewn to this one gets sewn to this one gets sewn to this one, and this one gets sewn to this one. And then once those are all sewn together, this will get sewn along all of the bottom edges. And it will be the exact same thing with the lining pieces. Once all the pieces are joined together, the seams all get pressed flat. And now to give the bag its bottom. We have a bag. And a bag lining. The next step is to take the flat bottom of the bag and the flat bottom of the bag lining and make them meet. I'm going to roll this up so it's a little easier to work with, a little easier to see. I'm just going to join the edges of this rectangle together. Now we can flip the bag inside out or outside out, doesn't matter, all the edges are finished, neatly enclosed, except for the very top edge which will be folded over. Firstly, mark along the top edge 2.5 inches from the top. Place the top edge of the lining along that line, then hand baste into place. Press the top edge under 1/2 inch all the way around, and then 2 inches all the way around. There's that 2.5 inch fold over to now stitch into place. Strap pieces get folded in half, stitched with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and not flipped out with the loop turner because this is duck fabric and this particular loop turner is not quite strong enough to manage such fabric. So, doing it with the flesh covered phalanges, it is. The ones in my fingers though. I can't do this with my toes. yet. Give them a good press, and top stitch along the sewn edge for extra stability. And it's time for a try-on. Just pin the straps into place and slip the bag over the shoulder. If it's a good placement, go with it. If not, repin and check again. I like to hand baste my straps into place so I can stitch from the outside, ensuring a gloriously tidy box X stitch, which is not in any way affiliated with Xbox, in case you were wondering. And the bag is finished. Wait, I didn't think I wanted to do this step, but I really do. Let's add a hard bottom. Slice up a cardboard box to be the same dimensions as the bottom of your bag, maybe a fraction of an inch smaller. And if you feel like you need a little extra stability, feel free to double it. Now cut out 2 more pieces of that bedsheet fabric, the long pieces. What were they? 20 by 8. But let's do 21 by 9, as it will be housing the cardboard. It will need a little extra room. Now stitch the sides up, leaving one small side open. Clip the corners. Turn it right side out. And slide that cardboard in, and seal up the end with the sewing machine. And now you have a hard bottom for your bag. Just don't put this part in the washing machine. If you really want to be able to wash it though, just don't stitch the end closed, use Velcro or snap so that you can pull the cardboard out for washing time. And that is that. We have a bag.